What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode will be continuing our Kivy tutorial in app building for Python. And if this is the first video you're jumping in on, that's definitely cool, but I recommend if you want to follow along line for line with what we're doing, you kind of go back and get an idea for what we've learned already, because I'm not really going to cover the basics of how we got to this sort of funky looking login screen where you can punch in a username and a password and then hit this confirm button and have an output. So that's where we're starting from, and today's video is actually super important for Kivy because we're going to take a look at how to get all this stuff we added inside of our app and actually move it to a separate design file. So like if you're familiar with web-based development at all, you write like the main code for your website in HTML, but then you have a separate CSS file with all of the kind of style for the web page. That's very similar to what you do in Kivy. So we're going to move all of our widgets out of this actual Python class, and we're just going to call the layout. So let's get right into it. To start, whatever you name your actual app that you call, you need to create a Kivy design file that's that same name except minus app. So if we call this login app, then we want to come into our environment wherever you're creating your app, and you want to create a file that is login.kv. So whatever you've called this, if you called it, my app, like we've said in past episodes, this would be my.kv. Just make sure it's the exact same name as your app minus the word app and then .kv. And then Kivy just knows to look in the same directory for a file like that. So then what we're going to do is, instead of calling a grid layout here, we're actually going to call a widget now. So this is kind of a new thing. So we are going to need to import that, and we'll just say from kivy.uix.widget import widget. So nothing new there, just following standard format. But now that's just a little different thing you do for calling it in Kivy. But then you're gonna come over here, and the first thing you're gonna do is actually name your Kivy design file whatever class you called it. So we called it login screen over here. So you go ahead and inside the kind of angled alligator mouths, you're gonna just define it over here. So now we're gonna just start building out our grid layout, and then at the end I'll go ahead and we're gonna clear all of this out, but I'm gonna keep it present until we've built it in the Kivy file. So something super important with Kivy design is it uses tabs to know where you are. So anything that's supposed to be inside your login screen needs to be tabbed in once, and then we're going to create that outer grid layout just like we had previously, and that needs to be one tab inside. But then when we're creating things inside the grid layout, that needs to be one tab inside of that. And if you use spaces, I don't recommend using spaces, because if you're not exactly at the correct character for anything, it's not going to build. So just use tabs similarly to Python and just make your life a little easier. Okay, so now we're going to build our grid layout just like we have on the other screen. And so we're making the outer grid layout right now, and we'll say so columns 1. And then this is kind of important. You want it to fill the entire screen, right? We made it a widget rather than the whole layout because that's how you call it. But now you need to make your size the root.width and root.height. And I can show you a little bit later in the video maybe why we do this, or you can, messing around at home, you can see what it looks like. It'll really populate in just one little corner, because if you don't say that your layout needs to fill the whole screen, it stuffs it into one little widget space. Okay, so we did that, and then the first widget we want inside of our main grid layout is that second grid layout. And you can mess around with formatting whatever you want. I usually will put no spaces for the various properties. I won't put a blank line as you add properties to a widget, but then when you add a new widget, I'll usually put a space there. That's just my preference. You can do it however you want. So now we're doing the inside grid layout, and that one had 2 columns, and we had row, force, default, true. So I'm building exactly what we had in the previous video. I'm gonna take everything down to even these conditions, just to show how you would recreate exactly the app that we've already built. Okay, so we had row force default, we had row default height at 50, and then what did we have in there? We had label, and I'll go ahead and just to make sure we get all of it right, I'll copy our parameters over here. You probably notice we're not using the equal sign. Anywhere that there was an equal sign, you're going to need a colon. Rather than do things on the same line with commas, just put them on their own line. It's a lot easier to read that way. You see I'm taking a little extra care to make sure everything's indented at exactly the right space, because it will crap out. And then for the colors, I'm gonna go back to just calling RGB alpha values. There is a way that you can create variables inside of Kivy design file, and we're actually gonna get into that in this video. But I am just gonna go ahead and call our colors directly, and this will get us pretty close. Enter, font size 20. All right, so that's gonna be our username label, and then let's go ahead and make our text input. This one will go a little faster. It's only got 2 settings. And in general, if you're familiar with Python and Kivy, like the basics, if you're just creating a little app, it doesn't matter which one of these you use. You know, someone who knows how to read code and work with it is going to be able to understand either. But as soon as you're building anything sizable, you're going to want to separate out your design, and then you just have this file you can come in and mess with the aesthetics of, or you can even hand it off to someone else and say, I have all the widgets that I need here, you mess with the design a little bit. So this really is, it's a better method. I'm going to go ahead and copy these since password is pretty close. Okay, label for this one is going to be password, and then I think everything else was the same, but then I think we made the password setting true, and then we made the background, it wasn't green, it was blue for that one. Yep. Okay, so now everything in the inner grid out here has been made, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of those just to see we can start cleaning this up. And now we want to put the confirm button in the outer grid. So everything here was indented inside the inner grid layout, right? Because this is the first widget inside the master grid layout. Now we need something one indentation level back from where the rest of the widgets have been. We got this here, and so that'll be our button. And now this is gonna be I'll grab all these again. Text is gonna be confirm entry, and probably for future videos, because I'm gonna keep building off this app, and we are gonna eventually have a few screens and a lot of stuff going on in this app. I'll probably build in this KV file. So if you want to know how to do something specific in just the root Python, you can go ahead and ask me about it in the comments. I'll tell you about how to do it if there is a way how to do it. But I would recommend, as you're building any real app of substance, you get kind of familiar with the KV design files. It'll help you in the long run, and it's what like employers and app developers are gonna be looking for. Okay, and so then let's say on press, And then one thing that you do need to change, it's no longer going to be self.confirm when you call functions for buttons. You have to go root and say that you're doing something that's in your root code. So it's going to be root.confirm with your little squigglies. Okay, and then that should be pretty good. So let's go ahead and get rid of this button. And we're gonna keep confirm out here because that's a Python function, right? It makes more sense to separate it out. We don't need these guys anymore because we are. And then let's go ahead and put this last label on screen, just a label with no text. Okay. Label. And there's something new that we have to do in here to get the KV file actually looking back to interact with it. So that's just going to be easier to show. So let me go ahead and clean this up. But you can see like we're creating essentially the same app that we already had, and we're down to just like 20 lines of Python rather than all that stuff. So my app is not defined. Yeah, that's because we changed the name. Login app. Let's take a look here. I don't know that this is going to build yet. Yeah, there you go. So this should look fairly familiar. Our button background is gone. I guess maybe I didn't change that. Oh, I gave it an alpha of 0, so it's completely opaque. There we go. So now it should be blue. Okay. So yeah, you're seeing when I'm pressing the button though, it closes right away, and that's because there's no way right now for the Kivy file to know what anything is in the Python code and vice versa. So what we have to do is we have to create what's called IDs, but they're essentially variables that you assign to your things that you need to get data back from. So we'll say username is equal to username, password is equal to password. This is us initializing variables to use, and then we'll go down to our text inputs, and this one's gonna be, so you use the ID function, and that's how you're giving it kind of a call that can be called from Python. So your main code knows what each text input and button and thing are from the outside world. So the ID for this one is username. We'll make the ID for this one password. Okay, and then let's make the ID for this one, we'll call it actually output label. I gotta go back up and make that up higher. So the ID is essentially a shared lookup value, so it goes into the KV file and it can actually locate something specific within it. Okay, so then one more thing we need to do to actually get them to update in the outside world is we need to import object property. So one more thing here from Kivy.properties. This one's a little different, it's not user interface. And then import, and it's object property. And we have to do that because we need to grab the actual text from the objects. So right when you enter your class, you're gonna say username, or we called it name here. We'll say name equals, and to start, you're just gonna say object property and then none, because it hasn't read the KV file yet, so there's nothing in it yet. And then password, do the same thing, object property, and then none. That might seem a little weird, but then once the confirm button is pressed, that's when it actually goes and grabs the data. And we no longer need instance anymore, we can just use self. That's another nice feature of separating out the stuff into Kivy. So let's see, that may be everything we need. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Did that kind of quick. Let's say our username is Harry Potter and our password is Leviosa. All right, so one thing I want to go change, it looks like the password text entry is not doing the like secret star anymore, but our our button is rebuilt. So let's go ahead and take a look there. I may have put the, yeah, this password true setting needs to be on the text input box, not on the label. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, all right, secret password, very cool. So you're probably saying like, hey, that was a 15-minute video to have the exact same app I started with. But going forward, we're gonna have such a cleaner, better way of separating out stylistic stuff from actual functional meat and potatoes for your app. So this is your intro to the Kivy design language. It's something we could have touched on a little bit earlier, but I like to show that you can build it all out manually just within Python. So there's a good understanding of where all these settings are coming from. But moving forward, we'll definitely be using the Kivy design files a little bit more. So it might seem like a big exercise to basically finish where you started, but going forward, this can make our lives a lot easier. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions about what you saw today or would like to see something in particular on the channel, go ahead and let me know about it in the comments below. If you found this or anything else on the channel useful, I really appreciate a like on the video, a subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. And as always, good luck with your code and thanks for watching. Thanks. Bye.